Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Beat, a news and informative talk program brought to you by the Center for Community Media at Worcester State. I'm RJ Sheedy, and today we're discussing civic engagements. Joining us in a little bit is Dr. Joan Mahoney. Dr. Mahoney will be chatting with us about Enactus and how she integrates civic engagement in her courses. But now we're joined by Dr. Mark Wagner. Dr. Wagner is the director for the Center for Civic Engagements at Worcester State. Dr. Wagner, thank you so much for joining us today on this set.
Happy to be here, RJ.
So great to have you here. So as we said, you are the director of the Center for Civic Engagement at Worcester State. Can you tell me a little bit about civic engagement and what the main purpose and objective is of the center?
All right, good question, a broad question. We live in a complex world, and as society grows and tries to solve problems, civic participation is one of the main ways in which we do that. We solve our problems by collaborating, by coming together and joining. In an attempt to make things better for the people who need assistance or need problem solving or whatnot. So the big picture of civic engagement is problem solving in various areas of society.
So why teach civic engagement at Worcester State?
Good question. I think when you go back, to the post-World War II era, in the 1950s and 1960s, civic engagement participation was very high. All right, so this is a good example. We solved the problem of the Depression, for example, in the 1930s. We solved issues of civil rights and feminism to a certain extent. We solved issues of poverty to a certain extent and racism to a certain extent, all through civic participation, joining together to face these issues. Now, I'm not saying we live in a perfect world by any means, but in the 50s and 60s, civic participation was very high. Since that time, it's come down considerably. So we live in what some people call civic recession. That is, a lot of people are not joining in. A lot of people are not doing work like the Rotary Club, the Lions Club, the Knights of Columbus, voting. These are the civic duties that have fallen off. And so we teach and organize around civic participation to try and develop in you, students, the skills necessary to participate fully in our life.
So why do you think there's a generational disconnect with civic engagement? You did say it was down.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I don't have all the answers on that. There's a lot of technological changes that have happened. People point to the dramatic rise in difference between rich and poor. Rich people have the time and the resources to participate, whereas the growing number of poor or lower class citizens don't have those resources, don't have access to those resources. And so I think the growing disparity in our culture, technological changes, and also I think in some respects a measure of success. People don't feel the pressures of poverty and racism and feminist issues in the way that we did in the past, and so we just kind of go on our merry way. Those are three examples I'd give. I think the primary one, though, is that economic disparity. I think it's difficult for people from lower or poor neighborhoods to access the resources necessary to participate.
Okay, so one of the things your center is dedicated to is preparing students for effective democratic and economic participation that also promotes social and political well-being. We as a country just went through a very stressful, divisive, and long presidential campaign. Mm-hmm. What sort of statements are you hearing from Worcester State students about this election? And is there anything that we can do to help us bring everybody back together?
Okay, very good question. I'm hearing a lot of different things. There are. So we had a guest in last week who was a gubernatorial candidate for the United Independent Party. That was interesting. We had about 25 students. The students seemed kind of tired by the whole thing, to be honest with you. There were a few Trump supporters in the room who felt that despite the divisiveness, Trump might have a chance to be a good president. But by and large, I think the students who I spoke with at that event were disappointed, were discouraged, and were kind of exhausted by the whole process. We live in now, some people are calling it post-truth. The candidates were not as forthcoming as people need them to be. And so there's a sense of fatigue, I think, and wanting to move forward in hopefully a positive way. We also live in Massachusetts where, we say we live in a bubble. Our state is relatively well run. It's relatively progressive, so that students also feel that a disconnect from, say, Ohio or Kentucky, where the economic pressures, that disparity I talked about earlier, is much more severe than it is in Massachusetts. So I think we're kind of in a bubble here. Massachusetts has come through the financial crisis relatively well. We have a lower rate of unemployment. So we have a very different day-to-day reality than you would if you were in, say, Flint, Michigan, or Detroit, Michigan, or Youngstown, Ohio. So I think there's also a sense of disconnect from the realities of that the election brought out.
So there's an old saying, one man, one vote. But once again, the Electoral College has proven that that's not really the case when one candidate gets 2.5 million more votes, but still lost. What do you hear from students about the Electoral College? Do they really understand what its purpose is and why it's there?
Well, to be honest, RJ, my role at the university is not so much about teaching electoral politics or the Constitution. Civic engagement is partly that, but by and large, that's not my focus. I will say I haven't heard much. So I think if you spoke to some of our constitutional scholars, they might have more of a sense of that. In my own view, I'll be forthcoming in the sense that I think the Electoral College is in fact a brilliant structure, but it doesn't seem to be functioning in an optimal way when 3 or 5 states determine the election. That's the complaint, right? So if you have the election being decided by, say, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, then it kind of takes the one man, one vote process out of the picture. So Massachusetts didn't really influence the election, or that's the way we feel. So, but really, I think bring in a constitutional scholar to talk about that. I think, from what I know, the Electoral College could be a very effective way to choose a president, to have a select group of intelligent and dedicated individuals to choose the president. However, I do agree that there's a sense that it's not working right.
So you, very interestingly, you had a hand in the sustainability fair and presented information on renewable energy and solar power. How are those renewable energies helping us?
Oh, that's a very good question. There was a really interesting article today about an island, American Samoa, is going entirely fossil fuel free. In my own life, I've a solar array that's now giving us enough energy to live as well as to run an electric car. So in my own life, I'm moving towards a carbon neutral household, if you will. And so I presented on that the sustainability fair. Okay, what does that mean? On the one hand, it benefits me economically. We have no electric bill, and
you have no electric bill?
No electric bill. I haven't paid an electric bill in almost 5 years.
Because you're generating your own energy?
We have a solar array. That's correct.
That's interesting.
Yeah, no, it's something that you all should do. And then we added an electric car over the last year, and we're saving a good deal of money. So economically, it makes a good deal of sense. We're saving on gas, we're saving on the electric bill. But it also, in terms of civic participation, civic engagement, I think we do need to really assess not only climate change, but what kind of political and economic entanglements are we getting into when we're purchasing oil and gas, sometimes from countries who have, draconian policies, policies dramatically against the American values, right? So in some way, I think we should, I won't name names, but there's countries who we're involved with that have policies that are anathema to the American way of life, and I think we need to assess that for ourselves. The technology is changing dramatically. Your generation, more than mine, are going to have access to these wonderfully efficient and fossil-free technologies. So I presented at the fair to say, hey, let's embrace these. It works both economically and it works, politically, because it might lead us to disengage from some of these countries who, in my view, are very much against, American values of education for women, women's rights, gay and lesbian rights. All these things are in some parts of the world under tremendous threat. So why should we do business with those folks?
Absolutely. Now, one thing that I did see on your Facebook page is that Worcester State has teamed up with Jumpstart to do a preschool literacy work with Worcester and is recruiting students right now for the spring semester. Can you tell me more about this and how interesting students could get involved?
Oh, great. Yeah, this is really one of my favorite programs that I've had a part in bringing here to Worcester State. It's in its second year, and what we do is we recruit students to be part of the Jumpstart team. So teams of 6 or 7 students go into preschools in high poverty areas and deliver a Jumpstart curriculum. This is a program that's supported by the Massachusetts Service Alliance, by the United Way, and also AmeriCorps. So students who participate are eligible to be certified by the Department of Early Education and Care, and they're also eligible for a $1,200 scholarship from AmeriCorps. So it's not only helping the community, it's also helping our students being certified and also getting a monetary reward for their engagement. So Jumpstart, in my view, is a high level of civic engagement, high level of service, because it's benefiting both the community and our students. So give me a shout if you have any interest at all. We have 2 great coordinators, Julie Fitzpatrick and Lynn Thompson, who's an alum of the school. And they do these great trainings. I've heard not only is it helpful in the preschools, but the teamwork is very helpful. A lot of our students are getting a lot of support, individual support, through that team process. So yeah, absolutely, we're recruiting for the spring. We want to grow this program, and we welcome anyone to come. You don't have to be an education student. We have students from business, from psychology, from OT, yeah, terrific program. Get in touch with the Benenda Center, and I can direct you to our coordinators, Julie and Lynn.
And finally, what do you think is one of the biggest reasons why a student at Worcester State should be civically engaged?
All right, excellent question, RJ. Your generation, different than mine, your generation comes in thinking you need to get a job, right? That you're in school to get a job. I don't necessarily agree with that. However, you're faced with economic considerations that my generation didn't face. So you need to build your resume on the one hand, right? So, you don't want to just put Dunkin' Donuts down, when you go out looking for a job. So if you're part of Jumpstart, for example, or take part in some of our civic activities like the Sustainability Fair or Earth Day, these are very good events and engagements that develop your skills, right? You develop your skills to communicate with people, to organize yourself, to work in a team. So all of this is not only in terms of education, but also in terms of professional skills, beneficial to you. And the second way I'll answer that, and perhaps more importantly than just the get a job aspect of it, is, to have a healthy society, to have a vital society, we need people to get out there. Now, I don't mean you need to get out there every day and carry a sign and protest or whatever, but you need to be able to negotiate your way through society. Who has resources, right? Who has power? Who makes decisions, right? This is very, very critical to your quality of life as you go through life. Personally, I wish I'd known all this at a younger age, so I'm hoping that I'm doing my part to teach younger people to join and take part in society, because it's going to affect your quality of life in pretty profound ways.
Absolutely, it's really important for everybody out there to really get involved.
Get involved.
Dr. Wagner, thank you
RJ.
so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure to have you here. We'll be right back with Dr. Joan Mahoney. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Beat. Joining us now is Dr. Jay Mahoney. Dr. Mahoney, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Oh, thank you for having me, RJ.
Now, what courses do you teach here?
I teach in the Business and Economics Department, and the courses I teach are a freshman course, Introduction to Business, which is a required course for all business majors, and then some upper-level classes. I teach leadership, and I teach human resource management. I also teach a project management class.
So how do you integrate civic learning in your courses here?
There's lots of different flavors that civic learning can come in. And so let me talk to you a little bit about some of the options any faculty member would have if they wanted to integrate civic learning. You can do the traditional, and that is you have students in your class learn about a particular topic, and I'm just going to use Mark Wagner's Clues class, his freshman seminar class, as an example. And so they learn about civic engagement, and they learn about giving back in the community. And then they go out as a class, and they choose different places that they can go. That's kind of a direct class to client type of service learning. There are other types of service learning. Lisa Wark, who teaches a statistics class of all things, does a class to organization service learning. She works with a group. They design surveys for that group. They take the data, they do an analysis of data. Her students, her graduate students actually, learn a great deal about data analysis and the proper applications of statistical techniques. And then they provide that information to the organization, which then uses it when it's looking for budget increases from nationals or when it's going for grant proposals. There are also other mechanisms that we can use. For instance, I will use internships and do civic learning in internships and place students in organizations that need particular help. They may need marketing help, they may need accounting help, or financial management help. I can place a student there. The student can be of great service to that organization and give back to the community, particularly if it's a nonprofit. We do independent studies where students will come up with a project or an idea, and they'll go out into the community and they'll do that project or idea. So we can use service learning in lots of different ways and connect it all back to their learning requirements, to their academic advancement through their programs.
So as a faculty member, can you describe different ways civic learning can be integrated into students' learning? I think you just did that, actually.
I think I did.
I think you did. How do you do it in your class for business?
I do it in lots of different ways. So, for instance, this semester, I have a group of honors students who are looking at food insecurities on college campuses.
Food insecurities?
Food insecurities. Believe it or not, there's an awful lot of college students who go hungry every day.
Really?
They spend most of their resources trying to get their education, and they spend most of their resources buying books, paying tuition. Buying food is an option for them, or not even an option. You know, they just go without. Many college campuses, food pantries have sprung up, but we don't have one here at Worcester State. And so they are now investigating what is the status of food insecurities here on campus. They have completed a survey. Thus far, they have over 300 respondents to the survey. And most of the respondents are saying, this is a great idea. We really hope that somebody will follow through with this and start a food pantry. They're doing this as an honors project, and they're doing this as an Enactus project. And they're helping our own community here at Worcester State.
So you brought up Enactus. You are the faculty advisor for Enactus. What is it, and how does Enactus also engage in civic learning?
Enactus has been on the Worcester State campus for 13 years now, and it is the largest collegiate service organization in the world. There are 536 chapters in the United States and over 300 chapters worldwide beyond the United States. The whole idea in Enactus is to give back to the community, to use what we've learned in our academic life to give back to the community. As a business professor, we try to use our entrepreneurial activities to give back. But we're not just a business club. We have nursing students, we have students from education, English, psychology, sociology, urban studies. We have people from sports teams. We have athletes on our team. We have mathletes on our team. We appeal to everybody. We have about 70 plus students this year. And we do a whole host of topics and projects that we hope give back to the community.
So you are clearly involved in a lot of community involvement and outreach programs. What has been some of your favorite projects that you've been involved in that's benefited the community?
Let me give you just a few. We're in our third year right now with a project for Reyes House. Reyes House is a addiction recovery program here in Worcester that is focused on Latino males. It is culturally sensitive. It is language appropriate, so a lot of what we deliver at Reyes House is delivered in Spanish. so that these gentlemen can recover from their opioid addictions or whatever other addictions they have and re-enter society in a really, truly wholehearted fashion, you know. So one of the programs that we started for them 3 years ago was a financial literacy program. Many of these gentlemen had not had money management skills. They had been wrestling with their addictions. Whatever money they got went towards feeding that addiction. And so now we need to teach them the very basics. How do you manage your cash? How do you know what's in your pocket besides jiggling your change? How do you save? What is it that you can do to contribute towards your retirement now? Because Lord knows Social Security isn't going to pay for people's retirement in the very near future. What can they do to start contributing right now? So we go in there, we have a young man, Rafael Nunes. He is a senior this year, and he went in and developed modules. He's got a 9-module program, down from 12. We started with 12, but it's an adjust as you go kind of thing. He's got a 9-module program that really teaches the guys everything they know, from cash management to credit cards to financing a car to what kinds of taxes are taking out of your wage check every single week. And he teaches it in Spanish. He teaches them the English words they're going to need to know for the banking industry, but he teaches them in Spanish so the guys truly understand what's going on. That's been a great help to Reyes House. The gentlemen love it. They're very thankful for it. We've done other projects as well, and I'm going to tell you about one we've got going this year. It's called the Buddy Bench, and this was started by 2 young ladies who thought about all the bullying that's going on in the schoolyards right now. And they started to wonder, well, why are we always talking about bullying after the fact, after someone's already been bullied for months or years or however long they've been enduring this? Why not try, and I think this is the motto they come up with, early prevention instead of late intervention. And they watched at our regional Enactus meeting a group from another school talk about building a bench for the playground where children could go sit if they were feeling lonely, if they felt like they needed someone to play with. And they said, we want to do something like that, only we want to partner it with a kindness seminar for young children, for kindergartners and first graders. So let's not talk about bullying after the fact. Let's talk about the need for kindness and inclusion beforehand. Let's teach them the right thing to do before they learn the wrong thing to do. So they're in the process of doing that. They've got 3 schools that they're working with here in Worcester, and they are currently trying to negotiate with some of the technical schools in the area to build these benches. They're trying to get the older kids to see the value of kindness and by building these benches, and the younger kids to see the value of kindness by playing with people. And that's one of my favorites as well.
So you are really, really bringing students into the world of being civically engaged. But early in the program, Mark Wagner said that civic engagement is down, particularly from my generation. Why do you think that is?
I wouldn't even venture a guess. But on the Worcester State University campus, I see an awful lot of students who are clamoring for the opportunity for civic engagement. 70+ students in my Enactus team, and my Enactus team isn't the only group doing wonderful things here on campus. We have an awful lot of people who are doing wonderful things. So I know that statistically we're seeing less civic engagement nationwide. We're not seeing less here.
So if a student was interested in becoming more involved in civic engagement on campus, what advice would you give to them?
I don't think they have to look very far. I think that they can go to their department and they can say to their department, what opportunities do you have for me? If you go to nursing, the nursing department will have tons of opportunities for you to get involved. They have been working at the Boston Marathon for years and years, and they do far more than that as well. In fact, I have 2 nursing students who just did a wonderful civic engagement project, and they have more to come with the Reyes House. They partnered with the Lions Club, brought in the Sight Mobile, and they did screening for eye tests, glaucoma, blood pressure, hearing. They did a great job. 26 guys that went through there, of which I think 6 or 7 found out they really do need to have some additional help. That screening they wouldn't have had otherwise. Our nursing students did that. That was really wonderful.
That's amazing.
So I think if students truly want to get involved, They can come see me, they can come see the department chairs, they can go see Mark Wagner, they can go see Adrian Gage up in residential life. There's lots of opportunities.
Now, we talked an awful lot about Enactus. How can a student get in contact with you to be involved with Enactus?
Enactus meets every Tuesday at 5 p.m. in the Eager Auditorium. So they're welcome to come at any point in time. They can talk to me. I'm in Sullivan 204C, and I'm there Monday through Thursday, usually from 8 to 5. I do teach, so I'm away in my classes and at meetings periodically, but I'm pretty easy to find. They can get in touch with the Menendez Center. The Menendez Center can direct them to all sorts of opportunities across the campus. So come on down. We'd love to have you.
Dr. Mahoney, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a great pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, RJ.
And again, thank you for watching us today. That's all the time we have for today. As always, I've hoped you learned something engaging and insightful on this program. Just reporting for The Beat, I'm RJ Sheedy. So long, everybody.